This month on FEI Equestrian World, we visit the eastern seashore of the USA to find wild horses on the beach at Corolla.
The Corolla Wild Horse Fund was formed in 1989 by a group of grassroots volunteers who had a deep concern about the wild horses who have lived here for 5 centuries getting hit by vehicles as the area became more and more developed. We have evolved now to the point where we have full-time staff, and our mission is to preserve and protect the last remaining registered colonial Spanish Mustangs left in the world.
How the wild horses of Corolla found their way onto the Outer Banks has always been a mystery. Karen felt that understanding their origin would help with the process of saving those remaining.
I looked into the North Carolina archives, and there are actually, we benefited because the Spaniards kept very meticulous ship's logs. And many ships that came over here, because this was basically uncharted water, ran aground on sandbars. And in order to lighten the load and refloat the ship, the heavy things went overboard, and one of the heavy things that went overboard was horses. And we know that every Spanish ship that came over to this part of the New World had horses on board. Some of the horses obviously were able to swim ashore because these sandbars that run off the island, the water's very shallow. If you watch people swimming in the ocean, they can be out quite far and only be up to their knees. So, and also there are 2,000 shipwrecks on the bottom of the Outer Banks, all up and down the coast. It's called the Graveyard of the Atlantic. And so it stands to reason that some horses were able to survive a shipwreck and swim ashore, and some are simply left behind when colonies failed. We do not interfere with them in any way unless it is a life-threatening or quality of life issue. We do not supplementally feed them in the winter. They're on their own. They're like deer and any other wild animal that lives here.
I'm the herd manager, so it's my job to actually go out, monitor, assess, count, maintain a healthy herd of wild horses. We have 138 horses here, and from my standpoint, it's very important to be able to evaluate an animal and to make sure that that animal is healthy, and therefore we can make a decision that can benefit that animal if the animal needs care. I think what's unique is the environment in which they live in. They're still horses, but how they get their daily and nutritional needs met is completely different than a domestic horse. So it's not necessarily understanding horses by themselves. It's being able to understand natural resources and the horses and the ecology between the two. People enjoy horses, hands down, and it's a beautiful sight to see them on the beach, especially if you were to look here and you were to see them adjacent to the water and the ocean. I mean, that's a beautiful sight, and I think everybody would be fortunate to see that. This herd of horses, they're living in an environment that we as people like to enjoy, especially in the summertime. So because of that, people have decided to make some of this their vacation spot or home. And they have acquired the land that the horses reside on. And that's a challenge, because when you construct or develop a home, those horses lose resources that they need.
The area at Corolla where the horses have traditionally thrived has become a very popular holiday destination. The beach itself is designated as a highway, with hundreds of holidaymakers as well as locals using it as a thoroughfare. The land adjoining the beach is increasingly being built upon, and as the outer banks are separated from the mainland by a wide stretch of lagoon, the wild horses have learned to live amongst the trappings of a modern society.
There is a lot of interaction. And you know, for the most part, I think it goes back to education. People come here to see horses, and they, for the most part, I would say they try to be respectful and give them their space, but I don't think they really have a true understanding of what it means to be a horse here. And so, if we could only talk to those horses, we would know a little bit more. I've come to appreciate all breeds of horses versus just one breed of horse. I came from a traditional quarter horse background, but since I've been here, I've been exposed to a unique horse that is definitely hardy. I think what's special about these horses is the environment in which they live in and how they have adapted to that environment. This can be a harsh place to live. In the wintertime, it's very cold. In the summertime, it's brutally hot. We have a lot of insects and biting flies, and I can only imagine if you were to compare these horses to a domestic horse, these horses, they're not cared for like a domestic horse. So it could be a challenge living in this environment. How they've adapted to it is amazing. And then how they've adapted to the people also. That's unique itself.
They're a very adaptable breed, otherwise they still wouldn't be here 5 centuries later. They've survived massive hurricanes, brutal nor'easters, insects, defied the diseases that affect other horses. But now they're having to deal with an influx of people. There are already about 700 homes constructed up there. There are 3,150 platted lots, and on any given day in the summer there can be 3,000 vehicles driving on the beach because the beach is the public road and that's how people have access to their houses. Our goal is to keep them wild and free as long as we possibly can. And that in itself presents a challenge because they are in an area where 70% of the land is privately owned, has been developed to a certain extent, and has the potential for more development as the years go by.
I think if we don't come up with a plan that considers the landscape, the horses, the people, I don't feel comfortable with their future here. Well, if we're going to be stewards of the horse, we need to come up with the solution. It's just like if we were to take on ownership of any other horse, we've decided to take on the responsibility of that animal. So if we're going to manage or take responsibility for these horses, yes, I think we owe them. Because we have deemed ourselves as the stewards of the horse.